Hey everyone, I'm your host Peter Zablocki, and you're listening to History Shorts. I hope everyone is having a great day so far, and thank you for making this show a small part of that. If you'd like to help me out with a small gesture, please leave History Shorts a rating or a review, and click that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. For sources and books used as the basis for these episodes, how to advertise on a show, and other information such as a list of our upcoming guests on the Conversation series, or a link to our Patreon account where you can find exclusive episodes not heard here, please visit www.historyshortspodcast.com. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate podcast listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the globe, all in one place. Download Podcast Republic now and take your podcast experience to the next level. Having said all of that, the Volkswagen Beetle, an unassuming compact car that became one of the most iconic vehicles in automotive history, traces its roots to a chilling collaboration between Adolf Hitler and engineer Ferdinand Porsche amid the rise of Nazi Germany, evolving from a tool of fascist propaganda into a global symbol of affordability, reliability, and countercultural freedom. Here is the rest of that story.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Born in the turbulent 1930s, the Volkswagen Beetle, originally conceived as the KDF Wagen, or Strength Through Joy car, embodied Hitler's vision for motorizing the masses, a scheme that promised ordinary Germans access to personal transportation while bolstering the regime's image of progress and unity. Hitler, who ascended to power as Reich Chancellor in January of 1933, was an avid automobile enthusiast, despite never learning to drive himself. He drew inspiration from American industrialist Henry Ford, whose assembly line innovations and anti-Semitic writings resonated with Nazi ideology. At the Berlin Motor Show that February, Hitler proclaimed a bold national policy to motorize Germany, decrying the country's low car ownership rate. Only 1 in 50 Germans owned a vehicle, compared to 1 in 5 in France and 1 in 4 in Britain. He vowed to create affordable cars alongside expensive autobahns to symbolize the Third Reich's modernity and strength. Hitler specified exacting requirements. The car should seat 2 adults and 3 children, feature an air-cooled engine to withstand harsh winters, cruise at 100 kilometers per hour, achieve fuel efficiency of no more than 7 liters per 100 kilometers, and retail for under 1,000 Reichsmarks, roughly the cost of a motorcycle at the time. This would make it accessible to the average worker earning about 32 Reichsmarks weekly. This people's car, or translated to Volkswagen, was not merely a vehicle, but a propaganda instrument, designed to foster loyalty to the regime by associating leisure and mobility with Nazi ideals, practicality through the German Labor Front leisure arm, and the KDF, which organized affordable vacations and outings for workers. To bring this vision to life, Hitler turned to Ferdinand Porsche, a brilliant but opportunistic Austrian-born engineer whose career spanned electrical innovations at Austro-Daimler and designs for Mercedes-Benz racing cars. Porsche, who founded his own design firm in Stuttgart in 1931, had long dreamed of a small rear-engine economy car, but he lacked the resources to produce it independently. Hitler's political patronage provided the perfect opportunity, though it came at the cost of aligning with the regime's darker ambitions. Their fateful partnership began in 1934 when Hitler summoned Porsche to Berlin, tasking him with developing prototypes under the Reich Association of the German automobile industry. Porsche's team, including designer Erwin Kommenda, crafted a rounded, Beetle-like shape with a rear-mounted, air-cooled boxer engine. Innovations that ensured simplicity, durability, and low production costs. However, controversy shrouds the design's originality. Evidence suggests Porsche drew heavily from the work of Jewish engineer Josef Ganz, whose Maikaffer or May Beetle prototype, developed in 1920s, featured similar rear engine and swing axle elements. Ganz, persecuted by the Nazis, fled Germany in 1934, and his patents were thus allegedly appropriated. Hitler later claimed the Beetle as his own sketch during a 1935 meeting. Additional influences came from Czech engineer Hans Ledvinka's Tatra prototypes, which shared the Beetle's streamlined form. Tatra sued for patent infringement in 1939, but the Nazi invasion of Czechoslovakia silenced the claim until Volkswagen settled for 1 million Deutschmarks all the way in 1961. By December 1935, Hitler approved Porsche's prototypes, and in 1936, a contract was signed for further refinements, with testing conducted on secret tracks. The Beetle's production was very linked to Nazi infrastructure and exploitation. On May 26, 1938, Hitler laid the cornerstone for a massive new factory in Lower Saxony, dubbing it the City of the KDF Car, and envisioning it as a model Nazi community with housing, schools, and theaters for the 30,000 auto workers. Funded by the German Labor Front, a Nazi organization that replaced independent unions, the plant was projected to produce 1.5 million cars annually, but civilian output never materialized on that scale. Instead, a savings scheme lured over 336,000 Germans to pay installments of 5 Reichsmarks weekly toward their KDF wagon, amassing 280 million Reichsmarks that the regime then diverted to war preparations. No ordinary citizen received a car, as production pivoted to military needs even before World War II erupted in September of 1939. Only about 630 pre-war Beetles were ever built, mostly gifted to Nazi elites, while the factory churned out military variants like the Kubelwagen, a Jeep-like utility vehicle, or the Schwimmenwagen amphibious car, essential for the Wehrmacht's campaigns. The Beetle's Nazi-era legacy is marred by profound human suffering, as the Volkswagen factory, renamed after the war, became a hub of forced labor and atrocity. Facing labor shortages, Volkswagen employed thousands of prisoners of war, migrant workers, and concentration camp inmates, including Jews selected from Auschwitz for skilled tasks. By 1944, over 4,800 Eastern workers, primarily Poles and Soviets, forcibly deported, comprised half of the workforce, enduring starvation, brutal conditions, and high mortality rates in makeshift barracks. The plant housed 4 concentration camps of its own and 8 forced labor camps, with sub-camps linked to the Arbeitsstreife. Inmates produced armaments, including V-1 flying bombs, under deadly hazards. A particularly horrific chapter involved nursery facilities for children of pregnant forced laborers. Established in 1943, these sites in Rouen and elsewhere saw hundreds of infants die from neglect, malnutrition, and a lack of care, with factory physician Dr. Hans Korbel executed post-war for his role. Porsche and his son-in-law Anton Piech, who managed the plant, profited from this system. Piech siphoned millions to personal accounts before fleeing in 1945, and both were detained by French authorities but never tried for war crimes. As Allied bombs ravaged the factory, destroying 2/3 of it by war's end, evacuations and chaos ensued, with liberated prisoners seeking revenge on guards. Post-war, the Beetle's resurrection defied its tainted origins, thanks to Allied intervention and savvy marketing. In April of 1945, American forces captured Wolfsburg. British officers assumed control, renaming the town and factory. Major Ivan Hurst, impressed by wartime VW military vehicles' quality, revived production to provide transport for occupation forces, overseeing the first civilian Beetles in December of 1945. This is all despite initial Allied skepticism. Henry Ford deemed the plant worthless, and a British report called the car too ugly and noisy. Under Heinrich Nordhoff's leadership from 1948, however, Volkswagen exported Beetles worldwide, reaching the US in 1949, where its quirky design appealed to the young, affluent buyers disillusioned with Detroit's gas guzzlers. The 1959 Think Small campaign by Doyle Dane Bernbach revolutionized advertising, emphasizing the Beetle's economy and simplicity, propelling it to become America's top imported car in the 1960s, with over 21.5 million units sold globally by 2003. Variants like the Carmen Ghia Coupe convertible and camper van expanded its appeal, while Hollywood immortalized it as Herbie in 1948's The Love Bug, transforming the once Nazi emblem into a lovable icon. The Beetle's cultural metamorphosis was profound, especially in the counterculture era. In the 1960s California, it symbolized peace and rebellion, adorning surfboards and hippie vans, a stark contrast to its fascist birthplace. Production boomed, with the millionth Beetle in 1955 marking West Germany's economic miracle, and by 1972, it surpassed Ford's Model T as the best-selling car ever. Challenges, however, arose in the 70s. Oil crisis, emission regulations, and competition from Japanese imports led to the U.S. sales halting in 1979. But it thrived in Mexico as a national staple until the last original Beetle rolled off in Puebla on July 30th, 2003. Volkswagen revived the name with the new Beetle in 1988, a retro-styled model on the Golf platform, and a third generation in 2011, though production ended in 2019 amid shifting markets toward SUVs. In reckoning with its past, Volkswagen has shown rare corporate accountability. In 1986, it commissioned an independent history revealing Nazi-era atrocities, and by 1990s, it provided reparations to survivors, including 12 million Deutschmarks for forced laborers and support for Holocaust institutions. Today, as of 2025, the Beetle's legacy endures in museums, films like the 2018 Bumblebee and Electric Revivals, a testament to how a vehicle born of tyranny transcended its origins to embody human ingenuity and resilience, selling over 23 million units and inspiring countless imitations. From Hitler's propaganda machine to a beacon of post-war optimism, the Beetle's story is indeed a cautionary tale of innovation, entangled with evil, reminding us that even the most beloved icons can harbor dark histories. Thanks for listening. This Friday on the History Shorts Conversation Series, David Chaffetz, an independent scholar with a passion for Middle Eastern and Inner Asian history.
The reason why I wasn't very comfortable with the implied explanation of the Silk Road is that the Silk Road suggests that there are luxury products, mainly Chinese, which have to be transferred from one group of rich people in one part of Europe, Asia, to another group of people in Eurasia who are also rich. And everything in between is just sort of a blank space with people we don't care about who never contributed anything to civilization. It turns out that this space between China and, let's say, the Middle East or Europe was a very vibrant space, but it turned out to have been terribly important economically, socially, culturally. There was the basin for a lot of world religions to kind of travel across Eurasia, including Christianity and Zoroastrianism and Buddhism. And they did this by interchanging not luxury products, but items of everyday consumption and use, including horses and other livestock and other steppe products, if you will. But horses were the most valuable and, in a way, strategically, the most important product that they were moving across the steppe.